Computer. There it is. All right. Welcome, Ek Ong Kaar Kaur. We're so grateful to have you here. So, Ek Ong Kaar and I are really good friends for umpteen years. I don't know how many
Is
years.
it like 20 something at least? Yeah,
Yeah.
20 something.
Yeah. And we spent years talking on the phone in the evenings when we both were working and having our regular jobs and all of that, really talking about the concepts in the City Guru Granth, all sorts of stuff, but we were talking about really Sikh scholarly musings. That's one way I would remember this from way back.
Yeah, Dave Kaur was like, when I first started translating Gurbani, she was of course like, I don't know, just a good cheerleader. I mean, because I would be working on something and then she would be like, "Okay, tell me about that," and we would get into it, and it was a really important part of my process actually to be talking about things that I was wrestling with as I was doing the translation work, and then we would and just not abstract, but also in like how do you apply it to real life, and what is that really all about?
Yeah, beautiful. I'm grateful to hear that because,
Yeah.
it's a lot of just living life and time. So many of you who would be listening know Ekankar, and many of you may not. Ekankar, I would describe you as a scholar, as a Sikh scholar. She's does a lot of translations. I've got three of Japji Sahib, Anand Sahib, and Sukhmani Sahib of these, you could call them prayers in the Sikh uh, path. And a lot of people will translate and kind of take the existing translation and just kind of make it their own, but Ekankar really goes deep. And what is that concept really? And yeah.
I
So,
mean, I'll describe it briefly, and it's a pleasure to meet new people and reconnect with old friends. But every language has a map of meaning encoded in it,
mm,
you know. And and the thing, and this was something I studied when I was in college and came in handy doing the translation work. And the problem with a lot of English translations of Gurbani is they're they're not breaking the code of Gurbani. So you get like people will like read some English translations like, well, that sounds like the Bible. It's like, well, no, that sounds like the English translation of the Bible because you're still working in that map of meaning.
mm.
And so you have to break out of the idea. You have to get away from the idea of doing a one-to-one translation, like that there's one word of English for every one word of Gurmukhi, because Gurbani has a completely different map underneath it. And how do you then break English to try and paint the map that's encoded in Gurbani? And anyway,
Yeah.
yes. So that's the work I do. I'm kind of a renegade, honestly, but yeah, scholar I
Totally.
think is
Yeah, totally you are. Yeah. Yeah. One of the many, many reasons I love you so much. Yeah. So what brings us here today? I applied a title to it, but it's a whole concept that I've been really anchoring into a lot. And so I titled this The Return to Sovereignty, Cultivating Self-Trust. And I've been in deep meditation in my own life and with other people who are close to me about betrayal and what happens when we're betrayed in spiritual community, in our work environment, by a romantic partner, lover, husband, wife, whatever. And what happens, this sort of this kind of crisis of self-trust of, wait a minute, how the heck did that happen? How did I lose my inner compass? How did I think maybe I had my inner compass and then suddenly something breaks in life and I'm left going, wait a minute. The anxiety, the tension, the second guessing, the it's my fault, the all those things that happen when I call it when you kind of wake up and you go, oh, wait a minute. I'm relying on things outside of me that are demonstrating that they're not stable. which then brings me to this concept that's in the Mool Mantra, the essentially the first mantra of Sikhi, of this concept, saibhang, right? And we were just talking before we got online of, it's an interesting word out of the 40 words in that prayer, where it's kind of the most challenging to pronounce for English speakers. And it's kind of what? It's commonly translated self-illumined. What does that mean? At least in my experience, it's kind of like, huh? Right? Another way is being self-sourced, right? And it's kind of interesting that I'm going through this process of going, okay, wait a minute. In my own life and the people that I work with, in my coaching practice and in personal relationships, of like, how do you really come back to the essence of you and the sense of self and come from there, rather than, wait a minute, that thing out there isn't what I thought it was, and how do you get into that recovery process? So I knew that Ek Ong Kaar and I would have a blast talking about this. So that's sort of the introduction to the concept. So tell me what that enlivens in you. What comes forward for you when I say that?
Well, there's a lot of things. In the sort of more Western mystical tradition, we talk about the long, dark night of the soul. And in the Sikh tradition, there's a word called Bairag, which has this connotation of everything is tasteless, it's just blah, dark and yucky.
Mm.
And both of these things are actually considered like a moment of maturity, because the problem we have is that time and space is always changing. I'm always changing, you're always changing. And the mind creates a map of reality, because we got to navigate time and space somehow. So I've got my map. Yeah.
Hmm.
And the map is based on my perception, my subconscious filters, what I think my agreements are with you, what I believe, what I believe you tell me. Like most of us don't go around believing everyone's lying to us all the time. That's why it's a shock when we get lied to, even though deception is completely encoded into the human reality. But we assume everything is true, and then we're like, "What? Somebody lied, right?" So we have all these maps that we navigate through, and when the map stops working, right? Then we have an identity of a self crisis identity, because we all exist within framework and context. We're interdependent
Yeah.
beings, right? So so this is such a painful, difficult thing when betrayal happens. And sometimes it's just because the son of a bitch is a liar, or the son of a, anyway, daughter, whatever, because the whatever, the bitch is
Whatever
a liar, I mean,
works.
whatever you want to call, right? Sometimes it's because somebody freaking lied to you and you're just like gobsmacked.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes it's because you had a complete fantasy to begin with,
Right.
and then the universe goes, let me take this bucket of cold water and splash it on your face so you can get into reality.
Right.
But it creates a crisis of, like, we lose trust with ourselves because the map no longer works and where you go from there, right?
Right.
So let me just stop there before we go further and see if you have anything to
Yeah.
comment there.
Well, yeah, of course, I'm pinging here with many, many things. And I had an awakening, kind of those, call it a Waheguru moment, where it's like, wow, something shifts, right? Something teaches me. And before I got married, I had various partners and, just romantic whatevers. And I call the guys the big three. And these were the
Mm,
three, the over 6 foot tall, dark haired, blue or green eyes, hot, these guys. And each one of them I felt abandoned by and betrayed by, right? And I carried this story all this time, right? Kind of licking my wounds and all this time. And it was just even a few months ago, I went, oh, wait a minute. You said something about agreement, you know, where what I thought the contract was,
Mm-hmm.
what I thought they agreed to, we never talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'm cruising along with a contract. They're my contract, thinking they're agreeing to it. They're cruising along doing their thing. All of these guys were players, right? I knew that, but I made this assumption that they were going to treat me the way wanted to be treated, or I felt like I should be treated, or I felt like if I'm going to step into this space with this person, they're going to treat me right, right,
Right.
according to me. And I kind of went, whoa. I was expecting them to behave in a way that they never agreed to. I know all three of them loved me, cared about
Sure.
me. They were, sad I was hurt. I know they were feeling beings, but that was a wake up call because I went, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
They didn't really betray me because we
Because never had the same agreement to begin with.
never had the same agreement. So that's one thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Put that aside. And then I
Yeah.
got one more thing I want to bring in because this is another sort of awakening. I'm really into Kashmir Shaivism and 36 tattvas, right?
Oh,
And,
nice, nice.
on the very bottom, the five are the ones we relate to as the five tattvas of earth, air, water, fire, ether. Okay.
Yeah.
But at the very top is the one big vastness. And then as it starts to get differentiated, it becomes awareness of light. It's up here in pure tattva, then it moves into the masculine, feminine, and all of that. Then at some point there's an infusion of Maya, limits of knowledge, limits of time. I'd have to look at the thing to get really, what are the five Maya, limitations.
Right.
And
Limitations.
at that point, the tattvas, the elements, start to become what they call impure, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that was another awakening of like, well, what do I expect about life, period? Because we are living in a state of Maya. We are the spiritual beings having a human experience and so I'm running around getting all pissed off because the world is not working the way I want it to work. God damn it. And it's just like, Kashmir Shaivism. You look at it and you go, So those are my two things. The big three different contracts. And it took me 65 years to go, oh, right.
Okay. That's what
Well,
was going on.
I'll give it 40 years, because they were that
Right.
long, 45 years ago. So that, and then Kashmir Shaivism, and that we are living in a reality that is in part defined by limitation.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And so, as you're speaking, for I have my own little kind of similar story with the loves of our lives, right?
I love
Um, and it's just really briefly, there was one particular relationship where there was a promise made, and then the promise was broken. And I said to him, you promised this. And he said, well, I meant it at the time. Right? So it's like, well, okay. I mean, so what is the promise then? Well, I meant it at the time. Okay, well, the time has changed. Like, that sucks because I thought a promise was eternal, but I guess for you it wasn't. So, we have these experiences, and this is where the concept of saibhang becomes so important because in this in this shadow of Maya, right? The shadow of limitation, the shadow of time, the poisons of the five elements, anger, lust, pride, greed, attachment, all these things, you need something to light your way.
it. Mm.
And this is why, like, it gets translated as self-illumined, but what does that really mean? I mean, the way I've translated it in Japji is that you're moving by your own purity and projection. There is a light in you. There's a light in you, and if you can clear away the crap of the subconscious mind enough to see your own light, then that's the thing that guides you forward through the play and the challenges and the fact that things change and never stay the same. And, and I can have a map, but I hold it lightly because I know because reality is emerging. We're always emerging into the next moment. So what is that light in me that can help me see what the next step is?
Yeah. And that makes me think of, why, um, why we advocate in the Sikh Kundalini yoga and any tradition advocates sadhana, like a daily practice, right? Which I've had, big time resistance to, and in my own, just so like, in fact, this is a really cool book. I'll pop this down there that Shanti did this. Did you see this?
Oh, nice. Right.
Yeah, yeah. You should check
Yes.
that out. I've been looking to read it here shortly. I'm sitting here waiting for me. But what's really been interesting with that is I've had throughout my whole life, I've had so getting this, you need something to light your way. You need the reminder, we need the reminder that we are the spiritual being having the human experience. Otherwise, we just are kind of perpetually sucked into the human experience rather than going, okay, good. Now, who am I? How do I light my way forward? How do I move from my own purity and projection? How do I do that? Right? So you
Right.
need to have the reminders. So, discipline. Okay. I've had a tenuous relationship to that with that, even though I've, accomplished a lot in my life, the kind of daily getting at it thing. It's not been in the past, has not been such an easy thing for me. Like, I was a piano player from 5 to 16 and going to the grandmas, with my $3 and doing my piano lessons. And then I'd come to the next week and I hadn't practiced, right? Um,
Yeah.
so, but I've had periods of really dedicated discipline, but not like what I had wanted for my life that I would plug in and unrealistic, I guess, but plug in and just have a really great discipline and always remember my inner light. All of this is to say about 3 months ago, one of my friends initiated a challenge. And Renee, I don't know if she's watching, but hey, Renee, and of where you come up with a daily practice. So what I said is, okay, good. I'm going to do vocal practice every day because I'm deep in vocal training. And what has happened with my voice is just exponential from doing daily practice, just running my lessons 20, 30 minutes a day. And I'm a voice person, so that to me is a spiritual practice. So you need something to light your way. You need the reminder of your essence. So I just said all of that. Go for it. Tell me what you got.
Yeah. I mean, so that was also something I was meditating on yesterday when I was thinking about what we would talk about today. It's that the irony of sadhana is that, you know, when challenges hit, we're like, oh my God, I need a sadhana to help me get through. But the reality is, you want to do sadhana when life is actually going along pretty good,
Yeah.
because it builds the habit and the experience, right? So if life's going fine, but I'm making sure I'm getting up, and I'm over the years, and you and I have talked about this. Like, there's an ideal sadhana on any path. There's your ideal sadhana. I mean, the Kundalini yoga community, it's the Aquarian sadhana. In the Sikh community, it's the five banis and the Amrit Vela, you know. But doing something every day. I don't think you have to do hours every day if you don't have it. But you do something every day, because then if you are touching base and you're getting the taste of the spirit, the saibhang, you're getting the taste of the creator. Then when everything blows up, even if you can't, and so, I'm sorry, I'm going to pull this. Can I read a passage from Sukhmani?
Sure. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to read this. It's the second Ashtapadi, the first verse.
What page?
And it's on page 46.
Okay.
And the phrase in Gurmukhi is Haraka Nam that gets repeated.
Mm.
And I translate it as the identity the divine gave you, right?
Oh,
Hud is the essence, Nam is that identity, so your essential identity. Anyway, because this Ashtapadi really speaks to these moments where like everything blows up, and what do you do? When there's no love from your mother or father, no love from your children or friends, in that moment, let your mind recognize the identity the divine gave you. This will be your companion and help you, right? So it's speaking to that idea of saibhang in the midst of challenge.
hmm.
When the angel of death, terrible and frightening, comes to destroy you,
Mm.
only the identity which the divine gave you will be with you when you go. When difficulties wear you down with their heavy weight and burden, recognize the divine identity, the divine reality in every identity, including your own. This will free you in an instant. You can make amends so many times, but that won't cross you over the ocean of life. Recognize the divine reality in every identity, including your own. Then the pain you feel over the million mistakes your ego has made will depart. Mind of mind, follow and surrender to the instructions of the teacher, the guru, and repeatedly call upon the Nam, the name of the one that awakens the divinely given identity of a person. O
Mm.
Nanak, then you will find peace and abundance.
Wow.
Right?
Wow, that's super key. I'm gonna put it in the chat when, when we're done,
Okay.
to share with people. So talk to me. Tell me what you got in
So
mind.
this is kind of so again, and so you'll see at the end of that, Nam gets translated as name, right? So this is what I mean by breaking out of the vice of the English subconscious map, right? Nam is a name, there's the name of God that we chant, but there's the Nam, you are also the name of God in you. Like that's the thing we're trying to get. The experience of the Nam is not, oh, I'm chanting Gobind. The experience of the Nam is I chant Gobind and I find it in me, my light, my own, the Gobind in me, right? So, so what Guru Nanak is going to talk, and Guru Arjan and the Gurus are going to talk about is that you practice the chanting, the meditation, so you can find that identity within you that is beyond the mind, beyond time, beyond the ego. And then when all these challenges hit you, I don't say you get escape it, right? Sadhana does not mean you get a pass out of the challenges.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean it's like I was talking to some friends last month and we were talking about the will of God, and I was like, just because it hurts doesn't mean it's not the will of God. I mean, it's not, there's no promise that this is, never hurts or there's never challenge. The promise is if you can do your sadhana and find that essence in you, it will take you through these things. And that is the path ultimately to peace and contentment. Path to peace is not the world acts the way I want it to, because that's impossible. The path to peace is I have the capacity to navigate because I'm in tune with my light.
Yeah. And a tremendous amount of self-forgiveness and recognition of your humanness, because a
Yeah.
couple of things like what I see in my own life and then working with people who are in crisis, right? That falling apart. It doesn't mean that if you've got some sort of practice going, that you're not going to fall apart. And falling
Yes.
apart, whatever that means, like, oh my God, my husband betrayed me. It's my fault. They blah blah, all that kind of stuff that we go through. That's the human experience, you know? And and then how do you navigate through it to come back to the place of self-trust, back to the place of sovereignty, back to the place of being self-sourced? It doesn't mean that by having a practice you're not going to go, whoa, you know. and get hit by the wave. You know, we just had the whole tsunami scare for the Hawaii and the West Coast, and
Right.
blow. Well, okay, it was this, it wasn't that. So
Yeah. Yep.
another
I'm with you.
thing, two more things about sadhana that I want to talk about
Sure.
is one, when I started as a yogi when I was 16, and then it was when I was 23, I got into Kundalini yoga. And there's the prescribed way, 2.5 hours of sadhana every morning at 4 to 6:30 in the morning, the whole
Right.
Amrit Vela thing. And I had a relationship with that, right? So
It's a stretch. I mean, it pushes you.
yeah, so I'd be in, oh my God, my sadhana's not good enough, blah, 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 so 1983, right? Brand new, inspired, finally finding something that's giving me peace and anchoring me to giving me the answers that I'd been missing in my life. Well, 1989, my parents were killed by a drunk driver. So one died, 5 o'clock, right when it happened, one night, and then my dad died the next night. And what was fascinating, of course, that was horrific. If you can imagine or not imagine, it's hard to imagine. It was horrific, but I knew what to do.
Mm.
I knew how to align myself. I knew, I knew how to self-source. So in my Maya state, I go, oh God, I'm not good enough. I'm not doing it right. But I was. It was. I was.
It was working. It wasn't the picture of the perfect. The picture of the perfect is the enemy of the real, right? Like you weren't doing the picture perfect sadhana,
I
but
gotta,
what you were doing was real.
the picture of the perfect is the enemy of the real. Got that? Okay. Because then the other thing I wanted to say is what gets cultivated sometimes in community. And, I believe I know it got cultivated in the 3HO community in ways that aren't perhaps not healthy, supportive, was you're experiencing a crisis. Well, it's because your sadhana is messed up.
Yeah, right.
If you did a better sadhana, you wouldn't have had blah, blah, blah happen. You know how we, in the world of Maya, in our world of limitation, we'll get these constructs that this is what sadhana means. And if you do it the right way, all of this, and that becomes kind of a cultured way of thinking. I'm grateful to be free of that and to be finding, or, what I think is free of that and to be finding a new way into that, a more
Yeah,
authentic.
I mean, I think that's such an important point. And what I would say is that I want to honor that the 3HO community is a new dharma. Like it's
Ah,
like 50 years old at this point. So,
yeah.
I mean, and that's freaking young. It's not like 500 years. I mean, this whole kind of visible Kundalini yoga, Shabaguru, interconnectivity is so new
Mm,
as a visible path. And we have to give ourselves permission to go through the maturation process, right? So the idea that sadhana prevents and fixes everything is magical thinking.
yeah.
Oh, if I just do sadhana, I'll never get cancer. If I just do sadhana, no one in my family will ever die. If I just do sadhana, it's like it, but that's a child's way of looking at the world, right? Oh, I have my magical formula, and so, and I don't begrudge that, because it's the age of innocence, like, because sadhana is clearly doing something good. Well, then wouldn't it do everything? But, excuse me for a second. But finding the real, what does sadhana really do? It brings grace into your life. So yeah, sometimes it does help prevent things or elevate things. But it also brings grit into your life so that when the challenge of time and space hits, it doesn't completely destroy you.
Yeah, because one of the things that I believe and I muse around, because one of the fundamental teachings of Nod yoga is that we are a vibration, everything
Yes.
vibrates, and that we hold dis-ease blocks as a frequency, as a vibration in our body, in our magnetic field. And that as we vibrate, whether it's just pure Nad yoga, without applying mantra to it or applying mantra to it, that our frequency changes and those things that don't match that frequency over time. That's why you repeat mantra over and over and over and over, right? Repeat
Right.
sound is that those things can break away and fall away. And uh, being a student of Yogi Bhajan for so many years and all the fabulous teachings I got from him, uh, he talked about that you're basically you're clearing karma.
Right.
So that does, in my humble view, does happen in sadhana. You get that self-anchoring and you also get this clearing so that when you get to the time and space where something was pre-programmed to happen, these are teachings in our path, that what might have been catastrophic is this soft thing,
Yes.
you know. So
Right.
that comes to mind.
The capacity to be intuitive is a gift of sadhana, and intuition can guide us through life at a higher frequency, and our subtlety and sensitivity. There's all kinds of things that develop that give us the possibility of a more radiant, joyful existence. And and yet, like for me, and I'll share my own personal experience. I did a I was happy with my sadhana for many years when I was living in the ashram. I would do Kundalini yoga in the morning and translate Gurbani in the twilight hours.
Mm.
And I did that from the year 2001 until 2015. That was like 14 years of a sadhana.
Wow.
And yet in 2016, I had a complete mental health breakdown. And you were a friend and witnessed me go through that.
Yeah.
And there was a feeling of betrayal then. Like what the, I did all this, I did all this sadhana. What the
Yeah,
hell is
right.
happening to me?
Yeah,
What?
right.
Wait a second, this isn't fair. And so it was very humbling, to have to go through that. And it was partly I was going into menopause, it was partly hormone related, but it was also unfinished business that was sort of ready to present itself. Like after doing 14 years of sadhana, the universe was like, okay, now you're ready to deal with this. But you've got, but I had to go through the breakdown and the loss of my sense of identity and context and everything. And this is what it means, the long night of the soul, or the vairag stage, where you have deep experiences and you build a concept, and then the universe goes, great, now I got to take all that away from you.
Yeah.
Because there's more. And it's taken me it probably took, after my breakdown, I didn't even want to wear a white turban for a while. I would wear like blue or purple turbans. It's only in the last couple years that I'm back to my white turban again. Like it's interesting that the practices have reemerged when they're ready. Like I'm not forcing this, but it wasn't also real for me, in those first years afterwards. So what is this journey we're on? We can't define it. And that can be scary.
Which then I'm glancing at this definition of saibhang up on my screen here and says being self-sourced, right? And what it takes to reconnect with inner knowing. And like
Yeah.
for me, from the great kaboom and the big revelations of you know the whole whoa that happened in early 2020 with Yogi Bhajan and the Dharma and all of that, and my whole journey over time with that,
Right.
which I was like, oh, that'll just take me a couple weeks to integrate that. ah, you know, ah. And so it's like you're saying, how these things come back in. Like I was, a very devoted Sikh rag kirtan, classical Indian, Northern Indian musician, and
Right.
in a lineage. My teacher is 12th generation, but I'd gotten away from that. maybe 15 years ago. I don't, 10, 15 years ago, I'd gotten away from that. And he and his wife were visiting the US and they were in New Mexico. So Shanti and I went down to Gurdwara in Albuquerque. I hadn't been to Gurdwara in a long time. And it
Mhm.
was like, wow, I am really a Sikh.
Yeah.
Like that kind of coming in of like, because I had to go through a breakdown period, 2023, 2024. I lost my voice, got acid reflux, and I am voice defined. And I'm like,
Right.
I was depressed with that for like a year and a half, a year and a quarter, before I started making action to rehab my voice. And like, who the hell am I? Who the hell am I if I'm not cruising around as Dave Srubkar and the White and and cruising around the world and teaching and doing all of that. Well, who am I now? Well, I am me. And that these pieces and parts that are the essence of what I really resonate with. I'm just delighted that these things start coming back in, of like, oh, that's cool. I don't have to do it in a way, I don't have to do anything in a way that isn't in self-alignment, and I don't have to be, I don't have to be asking for forgiveness because I'm not doing it the way somebody thinks I should or the way I think I should or anything. It's just like, what am I? Who am I? Where am I coming from? What is my anchor? So there,
Yeah.
there's that.
Yeah. I mean this is, it's really powerful because again, you're like, to me, you're describing the state of Vairag or the dark night of the soul, right? You who have been the Nad yogi for decades, in the face of having to wrestle with deception and the betrayal that deception naturally creates for people, you lose your voice, you know, right? And it's like, and so these things play, and in my own journey and experience, the it's not separate from the play of Maya, right? We're, there's always deception, and we're always growing and we're always learning and we're always playing. And so we go into the place where the mind goes, "Oh wait, my map of reality is wrong. I can't trust my map of reality anymore. I have to let it all go because I don't know what to trust in my own concept." Then it's for shit, man. Everything falls apart, and like you can't hold on to anything because you don't trust anything except the next breath and the next step. Well, I trust that I'm here today. Okay. And then slowly something emerges because of the inner guidance, because of that inner light. And it's like, okay, well, okay, this makes sense. And you slowly reemerge into a new map that has integrated the deception, learned whatever lessons, but then what emerges is from authentic being, and it's more solid now because it survived the falling apart. And you said, okay, out of the shattered pieces of my being, I don't want to lose Kundalini yoga. I don't want to lose rock here, and I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose that. But I can't participate in a certain construct that that is no longer authentic anymore
Yeah, no longer authentic to me
to me.
because it can be authentic to somebody else, but
Sure.
it doesn't work for me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so there was a couple of interesting things that happened about trust. So,
Mm.
I started Kundalini Yoga in 83. I was 23, right? And this
Mm-hmm.
whole kaboom happened when I was 60. So,
That's a long time.
43 years. Is that
Yeah.
right? I'm not, no, 37 years, right?
Okay.
At that point. And I was a very in a psychic contract with Yogi Bhajan. I didn't expect to talk about this kind of stuff in particular, but
We're
let's,
just going for it and going
yeah.
where it
And this
goes.
will be long, 'cause, so normally we go a half hour with 40 minutes or something, but we'll keep going, for a little while longer here. But
Okay.
something really interesting happened for me because I was really felt like isn't even it. I was in a psychic contract with Yogi Bhajan. He was my teacher, I was his student, and there was a subtle teaching that was going on. And I would lean into that contract when I was kind of like, well, should I make big life decisions? And I'd kind of feel into that space, with him as my teacher, and I'd get my answer, no, don't leave your job yet, whatever. Well, so throughout the years, he would say, and you likely remember this, but he would say, don't trust me. Don't,
Yes.
don't,
Yes, he would say it.
yeah, so, and I would, this part of me would go,
You should never trust your spiritual teacher.
yeah, right. And I'd go, oh, that's interesting, and I could, but I do, right? But I do. I trust him. And then this whole thing happens, this whole awakening happens, and I was like, damn, I did. I did trust him, and I was maybe self-betrayed by that. I don't know if I would, that trust served me, right?
You can't second guess where you come from.
Right, but that's definitely an awareness I have of like, kind of like, oh God, how many times did he say that, and how many times did I say, well, I'm going to trust you.
I mean, we can laugh about it, but but again, I think getting back to this idea that it's a young Dharma and needs to
Mhm.
mature, right? The, what I heard him say a lot was, don't love me, love my teachings,
I'm sure. Yeah, that was another one. Of
right?
course, I.
And so when the big kaboom happened, that's kind of that was where I anchored myself. Is like, I love these teachings.
Yeah.
I'm pissed at you right now. Like I had a picture of him that I hid in the closet for, I was just like, I'm putting this picture in the closet. I don't want to see it. I was mad because that deception, because deception is like, hey, we're walking the path of Dharma. What the frick is all the lying happening for? So but the teachings I love, and that never changed for me. And I think this is like part of the lesson. Like, you gotta love the practice, you gotta know yourself. If we get overly dependent on any other person, we're setting ourselves up for
And where my psyche
failure.
is going right now, at this moment, is that was 2020 when that happened.
Right.
And in the summer of 2020, I found a great podcast. I'm sure I mentioned it to you, called The Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow, Mia Farrow's son, a journalist. And he and his team were the ones who were finally able to break the Harvey Weinstein sexual assault whole thing. And now Harvey Weinstein is in prison and all that. But people had been trying to break that whole thing for years, 20 years, whatever. There were all these rumors of all this stuff. And that was really, really helpful for me to listen to that podcast. I think it's 7 episodes or something. And so that was going on, right? For whatever reason, I have people in my life who have been betrayed by their partners.
Hmm.
And I've been in this deep process with these people and going and very intimately, going through this very, very deep process. And I have this weird obsession of Reddit stories on infidelity. I'm just
Hmm.
like fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by betrayal, right? I don't know, what's coming out of all of this, but this is what's coming out of all of it is this musing about it. And it's this thing that what I'm trying to say is that we have spiritual community, right? I have a really good friend who grew up in evangelical Christian, grew up in boarding schools in Ecuador, this kind of, just being deeply into that thing. This construct happens everywhere.
Yes.
And
Because we're human everywhere.
right. And like if you just take it to betrayal, right? Just, like a romantic, marriage, partnership, something like that. There is a playbook that the person, I don't know, yeah, here's my phone. They start, come putting their phone, changing their password, staying late at night for work. Like there's all these, smiling as they're texting. Like there's like this playbook. Those are just some examples. I don't have the playbook to find. The circumstances are entirely different. The players are entirely different. The life circumstances are entirely different. But there's this underlying thing that happens with romantic relationship betrayal where somebody, what I commonly think is, I get into internal family systems and Richard Schwartz, who talks about the authentic system, authentic self, and parts. So there's the parts work is one thing, but Marshall Rosenberg and not to get too off track here, but I think it's important. He talks about oh God, I can't remember what it is, but that we're all trying to meet needs.
Right, exactly,
Everybody's trying to
exactly.
meet a need. So there's some need that may not be in full consciousness.
Exactly.
And that then the being is pursuing satisfaction of that need. And it commonly happens if it's not brought to light, it commonly happens in some subterfuge way that becomes where they suddenly, the partner, for example, is suddenly making out with the girl in the whatever, and oh my God, and that satisfying that need is so far more important than their kids and their family and whatever, because that need needs to be satisfied, and it's not just a making out need, it's some need, you know?
It's something deeper, and this is, I mean, and I don't have the exact line, but the guru, there's a line in Gurbani that's basically like, I think it's in the Anand Sab, O tongue, it's when the
Mm,
verse on the tongue. You
mm.
you chase after all these tastes, but you're never going to be satisfied until you taste your true self.
There you go.
Right? And that's the issue. And so it keeps coming back to this. And there's just one thing I want to offer around deception. And I mean, and listen, my picture of Yogi Bhajan is back up. I still honor and appreciate everything he gave me, but I also have a better holistic understanding of him now, and I'm not willing to be in la la land about it. It's like, let's own the whole light and shadow of the situation. It's
Yeah.
both.
Yeah.
But people lie, right? People deceive. People do this. I do it. We all do it. Some people more than others, right? We all lie sometimes. Sometimes people lie more. But by its nature, deception I wrote this down yesterday when I was thinking about our talk. Deception is about making you think that something is other than what it actually is. But why do people do it? It's because they want something from you. And there's a good chance that if they were honest, you wouldn't give it to them. So there's a hidden agenda.
Ooh, ooh, you wrote that down? Send that to me, right?
Yeah.
Because you read it
Yeah.
off. Is that just
So
like,
let me,
is that like a
and this,
thought from you or go ahead.
I don't, it was just my internal dialogue and I was writing it down. So let me read this again because it hooks back to saibhang. The nature of deception, somebody wants something from you and there's a good chance that if they were honest with you, you wouldn't give it to them, so it's a hidden agenda. It's very difficult to develop the caliber to be honest and let God take care of you.
Hmm.
To not lie or deceive others because you want or need something from them, but just to be straight, honest, and trust the universe. But the only way to trust the universe is to be straight and honest. And that's a characteristic of saibhang, right? That, like, I'm not trying to manipulate the situation, but I'll just come out and be honest and then let it play. But we don't want to do that. That's why we lie to each other. That's why we deceive each other. That in my, of course, now we're getting really honest. So in my early years, like long before Kundalini yoga or anything like that, I experimented with open relationships. right? And the thing I appreciated about that was the honesty. At the end of the day, it wasn't for me. Like, I want monogamy. I'm married. I'm grateful to be monogamous. But I never think the sex isn't the issue. It's the lying that's the issue, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
And that's what the people are upset because they were lied to. It's like if you were just honest about it, if it was just visible, then everyone would have the freedom to choose whether to be part of it or not. But the fact that it's lied about is where the betrayal comes in. And so one antidote to betrayal is learning to just get honest and let the universe deal.
Yeah, because yeah, yeah, you know, I could say things. I think the one thing I want to bring in is one thing I really like is the YouTube channel called Soft White Underbelly. Are you tuned into that?
Mm-mm,
So this
mm-mm,
guy, Mark Laita, 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 I don't know. He interviews people, and he's a photographer, but then he takes these gorgeous full length photos of these people, black and white. But then he does these interviews. So he does a lot of Skid Row, homeless,
mm,
prostitutes, pimps, Johns, and then he does all sorts of interviews of really, really fascinating people. He spent a lot of time in Appalachia interviewing
mm,
people, you know, just interviewing people in their lives. And he interviewed this couple once, and this is what made me think of it, who were, oh gosh, I don't know what you would call it, but in kink, a couple who were into kink. And they were in kink communities, right? And the man in particular would orient people who are coming into sort of open sex kink community. He would orient them to how to be in that environment. And it was
mm,
so much about what was refreshing about it is that the honesty that these guys were talking, that's not what I'm into. I like you. I'm monogamous. I'm not into open relationships. I'm not into, playing out kink or swinging or whatever. But
right.
but that was what was, I'm sure there's all sorts of weird stuff that happens, yes, because we're humans, but that openness, that honesty, that this is how we move forward in a healthy way, right?
Right.
But that, what happens in romantic relationship infidelity is there's a secret.
There's a secret. And the secrets, there's a saying in psychology that I appreciate. We're only as sick as our secrets.
Oh,
And that is so true. Like, it's the secrets that are the problem. And it's the lying that creates the experience of betrayal. And
yeah.
but then this is again when we're talking about Maya, right? We're talking about the limitation of time and the elements and their poisons, lust, greed, pride, attachment, all that stuff. That oh wait, where did my train of thought go?
Yeah, well,
Um,
let's finish up because we could keep going, but like in five
yeah, we
minutes.
could, but we can, that the self to be saibhang is self-illumined, going by your own light. It requires self-honesty. And okay, I forgot where my train of thought went. So it went off the rails. So anyway,
Well,
I don't know what I
okay,
was going to say.
let
I
me
forgot.
let me add this in, and then maybe
Yeah,
I just pulled up what the five Mayas are, just for
yeah.
interest, just so we can anchor it in Kashmir Shaivism. Limitation of time, limitation of space, limitation of desire, limitation of
Mm,
knowledge, limitation of power. So
interesting.
they get infused in, at the very top, it's consciousness of light, awareness of light,
Okay, so this is where now I remember what I was going to say, and I'm going to see if I can
secrets.
find this in the Anon sub really quick,
Mm.
because the problem with you're only as sick as your secrets, not the problem. The issue is
Mm.
that we know what things should look like, right? But then we don't want to act that way, but we want to be seen that way.
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. Yeah. The persona, right? The actor.
Right.
I want to be perceived as the very
Yeah.
together. What page you on?
Right, right. I want to look the part because that gives me respect, it gives me status, blah, 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 but I'm not going to be it. And that is the self-deception. I don't want to be what I know I should be or what like I want to do. Anyway, so the 19th pori of the Anand Sab on page 52.
Okay. I'm ready.
The inner being is clouded with filth, but the outer image is pure. The outer image is pure, but the inner being is clouded with filth. Those who live like this have gambled with their lives and lost. There is a thirst inside which is so great, and because of that thirst, we attach ourselves to things that make us sick, forgetting about death. In all the sacred writings, finding the divine spirit within us is considered the highest, most exalted pursuit. Those who have not learned to listen deeply, sunya, we're talking about sunya, to listen with all of their beings, wander lost like ghosts. Says Nanak, when people abandon the experience of ultimate reality and attach themselves to deception, they have gambled with their lives and lost.
Bam. Bam. So
Yeah.
much of comes together.
Yeah.
Okay. You and I could play forever. So give me
Yeah.
just some last something, saibhang. Focus on saibhang and give us all just a
Um, Focus on what glows.
hmm.
If you want to understand your own saibang, what glows, things that have a radiance, trust that.
Which then leads me to this whole thing about my vocal recovery and that I have been accepted to perform in a club in Santa Fe and do my jazz stuff. And I am over the moon excited, just
Right.
beyond excited and it's all just coming together. And it's one of my passions to be the, whatever you call it, the siren at the stage. And, I've done it a few times, but then the pandemic happened and all that. But yeah, I'm just like, that makes
So
me.
it's not jazz singer or Rag Kirtan, it's
Mm.
jazz singer and Rag Kirtan.
It's the satisfaction of what that for me it's the mystery and the not mystery of vocal expression
Yeah.
that fires my rockets, makes me glow. Okay, Ek Ong Kaar, we went for an hour.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you. I love this. Thanks for
Yeah,
inviting me. Thanks for this great
yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
Um,
And I'll pop in the chat for the how to get on to email you at IkJote Foundation. I'll put the email in there to get on your email list
yeah.
for these translations and musings that you have. And like you announced, like if you're going to teach a class or something like that through that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so people
Okay.
can get on your email list. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Let's do it again.
All right.
We'll
Thank
come up
you.
with something else.
Okay.
All right. Big love.
Bye. Bye
You
now.
stay on. You stay on.
Okay.
I'm just making sure everything ends. And it's always weird this kind of thing. Live on custom streaming. I don't want a live stream there. I'll just shut this down and I should be done. And stop the recording.